Hello, welcome back. So, in continuation with again our journey of understanding services marketing, today we'll start the unit number three. This is all about the customer, defined standards. We'll study what is that customer defined standards and company defined standards. There is something called hard standards and the soft standards in services. And along with that, we'll try to study the leadership and the reasons for gap do and how do we do this. So basically, when we look in here, uh, every customer wants the company to be operated by the standards what the customers have, they mentioned to the company. But it's the difficult here. I think you might be remembering. Video where I said that the example I had given, right? So how can you really standardize the services, customized services, right? So where I have given one example of you call to any bank or any automated answering machine, right? Every customer wants that machine. Instead of machine there should be a person who can attend our problems or can hear our queries and give the solutions to that. But when it comes to the point of view of the company, it's slightly difficult as the company has also to look in the how their yield can be managed and maybe in terms of quality, efficiency, and the productivity. Now that's a dilemma, right? So in every service organizations, you find a mix of company-defined service standards and customer-defined service standards. So in view of learning this, let us try to see that, right? What are the factors that necessary for appropriate, service standards? As I told you, the translation of the customer expectations into specific service quality standards depends on the degree to which tasks and behaviors to be performed can be standardized, right? So that's what the it's like that, right? So it basically what happens is the some executives and managers believe that service cannot be standardized. The customization is essential for providing high quality service. Maybe the managers also feel that standardizing the task is inconsistent with the employee empowerment. That employees will feel controlled by the company if tasks are standardized. That's true, actually, right? I might feel it's a very tricky decision or a very sensitive decision. What all the process to be standardized and what all the process is not to be standardized in case of a services. Further, the employees might feel that they are too intangible. Services are too intangible to be measured, right? This view basically leads, to the vague and loose standard setting with little or no measurement or the feedback, right? So when you look in, right, in reality, when we consider say for example, if I take a bank, definitely in a bank many processes can be standardized. Say for example, you are going to bank to withdraw the money, right? What we do is, right, so we give a check and take a token, and then we wait there, and that check, back end, it goes to OS of the bank, then he checks the account, he passes the check will come to the cashier, and the cashier will tell you your the token number, right? Then you go to the counter and you take the money and you move out of the service system. So here in this, right, many transactions can be the standardized. And here, right, maybe we can feel that really for the long term, the benefits, like service can take basically into the three forms. That's what you have seen, right? That's where you find substitution of the service behaviors here in terms of the technology for personal contact and human effort, then improvement in the work methods, anything, right? So of course the technologies what we bring in the process of delivery system will definitely help in standardizing and increasing the efficiency and the productivity of the service delivery systems. right? Even in the improvement of the work methods also. But where the maximum we can say the combination of these two will really help the organizations to really go for the standardization of you know the services, right? That's how it really the helps the service providers, right? Of course, the standardization, whether accomplished by technology or by improvements in the work process, reduces the gap too here, right? Standardization does not mean that service is performed in a rigid mechanical way, right? Customer defined standardization ensures that the most critical elements of a service are performed as expected by the customers, not that every action in the service is executed in a uniform manner using the customer defined standardization can in fact allow for and be compatible with the employees empowerment. That's what I was been they're referring here. I've been referring there. All the service cannot be they standardized. The example what I had given, the banking example, right? So where certain processes of that the system can be standardized, which will help maybe whether and the employees may not feel that they have not been empowered or some control is being taken away from them. Then second aspect here is we need to say that how do we set the formal service, the targets and goals. It's very important, right? Maybe the company might say, call the customer, they back quickly, or you say that your services will be attended immediately by our the executives. So when we really look into this statement, right, call the customers back quickly for any complaints you receive from the customers. When we observe this sentence very keenly, right, so where we find here, literally, this is a vague statement, right? Quickly, what is the meaning of a quickly here? Right, quickly, are you speaking of 1 hour, half an hour? It goes with the perception of the employees, right, and how the culture is being really created in the organization, right? For somebody, quickly means it might be 1 hour, or service employee, somebody who is on somebody else's work already. Quickly means once he completes that work, then next will be quickly for him. Or it might happen, somebody may say quickly means it might be next day only when I'm going to attend these, the customer complaints. Fine. So that's the where we say that here formal service targets and goals, right? So where company can literally define, right? Where the company can literally define how long will you really take, get it back to the customers. What are your literally the service targets, right? There I can say, right, your complaints will be handled within 5 hours or within 4 hours, or company might they tell the employees ki this type of complaints or the services need to be fulfilled within so much period of time. That is where comes here the setting up of formal service target. Otherwise, it's very very difficult because every employee has each perception on the work what they are doing. So there is a need for formally defining what exactly the goal, the goals for your targets for your the service. And when you look here, right, so virtually all the companies possesses service standards and measures that are company defined. They are established to reach the internal company goals for productivity and the efficiency, as I told you before, or might be a technical quality, right? A current company defined standard that does not meet customer expectation is the common practice of voice activated telephone support system. That's I said, which doesn't allow the customers to they speak to human beings they directly, and where the company can really make in their efforts in understanding this, right? So this will really help us in standardizing the services, and the company has to understand that. So which all the standards that I should be designing in my service delivery systems based on the customer requirements. And please note that it's not possible for any company to have 100% the customer defined service standards, because as I told you, they need to look into the the product efficiency, cost, and the service quality also. So when it comes here, right, when we speak of the customer defined the service standards, right, here we have two types, right? One is hard standards and other one is soft standards, something which you can see and count, something which you cannot see and cannot count it. That's the reason, right? We take this famous, the quote by Albert Einstein. He says that not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. How much true is this? In case of the service delivery process, not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts, right? So please this keep this. I think better in the further slides. That's what you can see there. We say that hard standards and measures and soft standards and measures, right? So let us see the definition. Here is there, right? Things that can be counted, timed, or observed through audits, time and number of events. So which you can see, which you can count, how many times the machine is failed, how many times the company is unable to provide you right kind of services, right? So then you look in the soft standards, opinion based measures that cannot be observed and it must be collected by talking to customers. That's the difference you can see. If the customer says something about the hard standards, that can be measured. That means either that can be counted. But when the customer says of the soft standards, you cannot see that. Right? The effect of that will be measured only by taking the feedback or only by talking with the customers. Right? Let us look into some examples. Right? That's what it says. Right? You can just see this and see this hard standards. How can you measure this? Right? I can really measure this. Right? Timeline for any activity or maybe transaction time or the number of mistakes that you have done per transaction, counts of smiles, right, using customer name, violation of dress code, availability of the systems, right, phone lines, power, or whatever it is, number of complaints received, number of warranty claims, number or dollar of value of sales, return on assets, number of repeat customers for the company, number of infections per surgery, number of lawsuits filed, right, against the company regarding the services, right? So where you can count this or you can measure this, right? These are the hard standards which is defined by the company, right? Now we look in some of the examples of soft. Then you will understand that quote, everything that counts can be measured and everything that counts cannot be measured. You can just see that how do you really give a confidence or measure the safety or the convenience, right? Or cleanliness or the hygiene or consistency, hospitality that you show, or the credibility that your company exhibits, or the accuracy of the transaction, or the friendly personal, right? All these things, whatever is being listed on the slides, right? So you will be knowing it only through by talking to the customers. How will you find out that your service system is the clean and it's hygiene? You might say it's clean and hygiene, or you can say that we deliver your safe services. What is that safe? What is that safety? What does that safety means to you? Right? This should be asked. This should be asked only to the customers. Unless and until we are asking to the customers, this will not be known. Right? So that's the reason we say here. Right? So this hard and soft standards. Hard standards anyway you can measure and find it out, but soft standards is difficult to measure, right? Where the company has to go for the asking the customer either in the form of feedback or in the form of uh, you know uh, uh, the taking the survey or whatever it is, right? So this is something about the hard and soft standards and the customer defined standards. We just try to see one of the most important the concept in services marketing, that is yield management, because the inherent characteristics of the services intangible, and it cannot be produced and stored. This makes this very difficult for the service provider to the how can he manage his yield. And you all know that, right? You all know that in service systems, the capacity lost is lost forever. You cannot get it back. I think I have taken some examples in my previous videos also, right? So where if the bus goes only 50% seat filled and reaches the destination, and that 50%, another 50% of the capacity is lost and lost forever, and that may not happen in manufacturing, right? So I can produce and keep it. So this makes it the little sensitive and the critical for the service provider, right? So how can he manage his yield, and how can he understand his demand and the capacity is available, and how can he match the capacity with the demand, and what are the constraints available for him in managing this capacity and the demand, and literally what he can do it in order to match the demand with the capacity, or capacity with the demand, right? Mind, these are the two different strategies. Either you can match the demand with the capacity which is available, or you can match the capacity with the demand which is available, right? So it's very critical, right? So that's where the success of the profitability of the service organizations generally depends. How good are they in managing both demand and capacity, so that he can have a maximum yield for his company, right? So let's try to see this some of the strategies which are really the companies use it to match this demand and capacity. So before that, let's try to understand. So what are these the constraints they are available, not available, they are there already existed for the service provider. Maybe you can see the first line in the slide there. It might be a time, it might be a labor, equipment, and it might be other the facilities, right? So when we look in here, right, say for example, many service businesses, the primary constraint on service production is the time. For example, right, you take the lawyers, consultants, doctors, hairdressers, plumbers, right, or counselors are all primarily, they basically they are selling their time. If their time is not used productively, profitability is lost. And as I told you, is lost forever. If there is excess demand, time cannot be created to satisfy it. From the point of view of the individual service provider, time is the constraint, right? So you cannot create the time for the doctor or the hairdressers or the counselors, right? So then, right, when we are looking this in the form of the large service organizations like the company, right? The first example what we have taken, the constraint in terms of the time, is for the individual person who is they're rendering the services. It might be a doctor, it might be a hair cutter, it might be an individual plumber. But how is this the same when it comes to the organizations or the larger companies, where they employ the large number of labor, or staffing levels can be the primary constraint, right? A consultant firm, or if it is an hospital, right? So really, or it might be a tax accounting firm, right? May all the fall may all face the reality that at certain times demand for their organizational services cannot be met, because they don't have the enough labor available with them, right? Or might be their labor are already operating in a peak the capacity. However, right, it does not always make sense, right? uh, make sense to hire additional service providers, and if the demand is low, then you can fire them. Doesn't look nice, right? So let us see that this is the constraint how the company can really manage this, right? In some cases or in some organizations, right? So where you find that equipment may be the critical constraint, right? Say health clubs, or maybe it might be aerobics, or any of the things like that, right? So where maybe for network service providers, it might be bandwidth, servers, or might be switches, right? Represent the lack of the capacity. This the equipment is capable of only that much. If your internet bandwidth is only that much, and you face that constraint in order to serve many the customers. Then lastly, you can see that many firms they face constraints, right, brought about by their limited facilities. Might be the hotels have only certain number of rooms to sell, or maybe airlines will have a certain number of seats to offer, right? Or educational institutions are they're limited by the number of rooms and the number of seats in each classrooms, right? And maybe the restaurant is capacity is restricted with the number of tables and seats available, right? Understanding this primary capacity constraint, or the combination of the factors that restrict capacity, right, is the first step towards designing the strategies how best you can match your capacity with the demand. And when we say this, right, the second line, what you can say, there is something called the optimum versus maximum use of the capacity. So, what is this optimum capacity? Right? Is there any, the difference? To know the difference between optimal capacity and the maximum capacity, right? Using capacity at its optimal level, which they means that resources are fully employed but not overused, and the customers are receiving quality service in a timely manner. Please note this: optimum capacity, right? Optimum capacity is the one where the resources are fully the employed but not overused. Make a point here, and the customers are still receiving good quality services at the timely manner. That's the optimum capacity. The maximum capacity, on the other hand, represents the absolute limit of the service availability, right? So you overuse or you overburden your employees, where they might lead to fatigue, stress, and then finally it's a breakdown. When we say this, there are some instances where we need to consider. Say, for example, in case of football game, or in case of cricket, or in terms of basketball, or maybe the baseball, or whatever it is, right? Optimum and maximum capacity might be the same. That means, right, the entertainment value of the game is enhanced for the customers when every single seat in the auditorium or the stadium is being filled. That's what it is, right? Here, the maximum capacity is equal to optimum capacity. Hope you understand this, right? So there is, the lawn tennis going on. That means the optimum capacity is the one which is the maximum capacity, wherein every single seat in the stadium is being filled, right? In some cases, as I told you, maximum use of the capacity may result in excessive waiting by the customers, as in case of the popular restaurants, right? From the perspective of customer satisfaction, optimum use of the restaurant's capacity will again be less than the maximum one, where you reduce as much as possible, right? So how many customers are waiting there? Maybe if repeatedly it happens, you might lose the customers, right? How can a customer can wait a longer period every time he gets into the restaurant, right? But in case of equipment or facilities constraints, the maximum capacity at any given time is obvious. There are only certain number of weight machines in the health club, right? Say there is a health club, and there are very few numbers of weighing machines, or certain number of seats in the aeroplane, right? And limited amount of space in the cargo carrier, right? That's what, when you consider in the bottling plant here, say if the maximum capacity, if you go, maybe the bottling unit might break. That's what we are speaking. But the many of the service organization is the human being. If the machine is there, it will break down. The human beings. These are the human beings, right? So there, what I said, right? So earlier, people might get they frustrated, they fatigued, they're frustrated, distressed, and finally broken down. That's the way the organization has to decide it. Right? Always we suggest that it's better we go with the optimum use of the capacity rather than the maximum use of the capacity for the long term and the longer objectives. Right. So once we know this, right. So to manage the service fluctuations, demand fluctuations, sorry, in the service business, maybe the service provider has to have the clear understanding of demand patterns, why they vary, and the market segments that comprise the demand at the different points in the time, right? A number of questions need to be answered regarding the predictability and underlying causes of the demand. For that, what we can do is, right, you can chart the demand pattern, right? You can chart the demand pattern here, right? The organization needs to chart the level of demand over the relevant time periods. Organizations that have a good computerized customer information system can chart this information very accurately. Might be other companies might, they need to chart the demand patterns more informally. Either it might be I'm charting the demand either daily, weekly, and monthly. Maybe the demand level should be, the following. And if there is a seasonality, right, is suspected, graphic should be done for the data from at least a year, past year. Right? In some services, such as restaurants or might be healthcare, hourly fluctuations within a day may also be relevant. And sometimes the patterns are intuitively obvious. In other cases, the patterns may not reveal themselves until the data has been charted. Right? So that's where we need to, they say that they first we chart the patterns. Then second thing is the predictable cycles, right? In looking at the graphic representation of the demand cycle, demand levels, is there a predictable cycle daily? That means variations they occur hourly, or is there a predictable cycle every week? That means variations occur by a day, or if there is a variations monthly. If it is monthly, then the variations we have to observe it by a day or a week. And if there is a variations that occur the yearly, then we need to measure it occur according to months or the seasons. In some cases predictable patterns may occur at all the periods, right? For example, right, in case of a restaurant, especially in the seasonal tourist locations, demand can vary predictably by month, by week, by a day, or by an hour, right? Morning peak hours for breakfast, lunch hour peak hours for lunch, then evening, the peak hours for snacks. Finally, it might be for the dinner, right? So that's where you find, right, how I need to predict the cycle. If the predictable cycles is detected, then what are its causes for it, that I need to understand, and they take the decisions as is being applied. Or maybe at times you find the random demand fluctuations that really happens, that I need to understand and take the appropriate steps, as per that. Finally, I'll be doing something here, I need to keep detailed requirements or the information about the transactions, the customers, that they need to do, right, by the market segment, right, revealing patterns within the patterns, or the analysis may reveal that demand from one segment is predictable, whereas the demand from other segment is relatively random. Right? For example, you might say that for a bank, visits from the commercial accounts may occur daily at predictable time, whereas the personal account holders may visit the bank seemingly random intervals. That I think we all might know this. right? So where the business customers will more or less regularly visit at the particular period of the time, and other customers may go whenever they want it. Like similarly, find it in health clinics. Often you notice that more walk-in or tend to you get that those arrivals on Mondays because Sundays are the holidays, or you might find when there is a gap of 1 or 2 days, there might be sudden rush in the hospitals, right? So with fewer needing immediate attention in those cases. Knowing this, that there is a pattern exists. Some clinics schedule more feature appointments for the later days of the week, leaving more for the Monday for some emergency or some patients. And overall, what we can say is, right, we need to understand here how exactly the demand the fluctuates. Can we able to draw it? Can we able to predict it? Or is there any random fluctuations? All this we need to to know that whether can we match the demand with the capacity, or other way around, it's a capacity with the demand. Now let us look in first the strategies for shifting the demand to match the capacity here, right? You can just go through the slide, spend some time on this. That's the first case here, how you can shift the demand. This is not a new thing for you all. You all have might have seen, observed, purchased, availed the services with these strategies of the service providers. Of course, this is very much true in manufacturing industries also, or the selling of the product also, right? Whatever it is, right? Either it might be service or it might be a product where you find people or the service provider in case of services, manufacturer in case of the product, always try to influence the demand, shifting the demand. Maybe we all witness that some of the famous the online shoppings like the Flipkart or the Amazon, we know that they come with say Great Indian Festival Show, or $1 million or whatever, or Dasara or Deepavali. Now they come with the offers and the discounts. What does it mean really? Customer who want to buy in the month of December will definitely postpone. At least a significant percentage of the customers will postpone their purchase till that big billion day sales happens, or the mega Indian festival say happens in the Amazon. I just want to go and see. Leave that the online selling, or might be you can just your local the marketers. Either it might be product or the service. During the festivals, you might think that there will be more offers which are coming, then you will be waiting, and you will be postponing your purchase to that extent. What does it mean? It means indirectly the manufacturer or the service provider is the either they are asking you to prepone or they postpone your demand. That means I am adjusting, right? I'm adjusting my demand to meet my capacity. I know that the capacity is not there right now. I'll be building it there. Okay, then maybe the customers might purchase there. So this is all about how you can shift the demand. What all that you can do, or what all the service provider can do when the demand is too high. You can just they see there communicate the busy days and times to the customers. I can really say the customers that okay, so and so, right? Avoid using, or maybe you might create some segments and communicate the timings here, right? Or you can modify the timing and location of the service delivery. Or maybe you can use offers and incentives for the non-peak usage. That's how you can see many of the services to it. It might be restaurants, airlines, motels, or the resorts. So much of examples you find it, right? Offers, incentives, any five-star hotels, whatever. Then might be we need to set up priorities by taking care of the loyal or high need customers at the first. That's what you can say that in case of hospital, if something emergency is there, I need to keep my capacity to match this emergency requirements. Fine. And you can charge a full price for the services during the peak periods so that some customers will move away in that period and your capacity can be managed. So look at the right hand side of the slide. What can we do when the demand is too low. Maybe I can stimulate the business from the existing markets by any kind of the promotions, advertisements, or whatever it is. Or maybe you can use the advertisement during the peak usage times and benefits of non-peak the usage. And maybe you can vary how the facility is used and vary the service offerings also. And finally, you can differentiate your price. That's what I said, right? So might be many of us will be waiting to buy during big billion day sales or any discounts, or it might be Great Indian Festival Show, or might be Disra or Deepavali or New Year or whatever it is. Okay, that's what you can find it. These strategies will be generally used by the service provider in order to match demand with the capacity. That's what we have discussed so far.